Coconut oil is great for you and you should be eating it by the spoonful in your morning coffee. No, wait, the American Heart Association says that we should avoid all saturated fats, including coconut oil. So where does this leave us? Is coconut oil evil? Let's dive in. Hi everyone, Floyd Meyer here. Today we're going to be talking about something that has been at the heart of nutrition research for decades, and that is heart disease. So currently, heart disease is the #1 killer worldwide, and as such, we have put a tremendous effort into researching the medical science to determine both the cause of heart disease and what we can do to prevent it. Now, diet and lifestyle have been clearly shown to be extremely important when it comes to the development of cardiovascular disease. And part of that has been the study of saturated fat. So for many years, saturated fat has been linked to an increased risk of cardiovascular disease, meaning people that eat more saturated fats from things like butter, coconut oil, animal products, they have been shown to have an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. But recently, this has come under question. Now, a massive clinical study where they did a meta-analysis of multiple different studies with about 600,000 people. This was posted in the Annals of Internal Medicine. They said that, quote, current evidence does not clearly support cardiovascular guidelines that encourage the high consumption of polyunsaturated fatty acids and a lower consumption of total saturated fats. Now, because of this research and other newer research that has been calling into question this link, Harvard Medical School summarized these more recent studies. They say that, quote, a handful of these recent reports have muddied the link between saturated fat and heart disease. And there was one meta-analysis that said that there was just not enough evidence to conclude that saturated fat does increase your risk of heart disease. Now, they go on to say that if you replace your saturated fat with something like polyunsaturated fatty acids, or if you replace it with some type of a high fiber carbohydrate rich food, that you will reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. So if you replace some type of fatty cut of meat, or if you replace coconut oil with something like, fish, or with some type of vegetable oil, or if you replace it with something like sweet potatoes, some high fiber carbohydrate rich meal, that you are going to reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease. But if you replace that saturated fat in your diet with some type of a processed carbohydrate, so you cut out the meat but then you just add in more sugar and sweets, that is not going to give you the same kind of a benefit. Now, because of this new conflicting research, the American Heart Association actually published in 2017, they published a presidential advisory. And they said that they could not, because coconut oil is going to increase your LDL cholesterol, they cannot recommend that people eat more coconut oil. But they go on to say that they recommend that if you are going to shift to a lower saturated fat diet, that you should do so simultaneously in an overall healthful dietary pattern, such as adopting something like the DASH diet or the Mediterranean diet. So they're not saying that you just need to cut out all saturated fat and that's what's going to do it. You need to do it in part of an overall healthful dietary pattern. So where does this leave us? Should we avoid coconut oil like the plague? The answer is it depends. There is going to be a huge amount of individual variability between how people respond to certain diets. They have done a number of different studies looking at lower carbohydrate diets, which in turn are going to be higher in fat, specifically saturated fat, and many people do very well on them. They have lower risk of cardiovascular disease, but you could put different people on that same diet and they're going to do horribly, and their cholesterol is going to go through the roof, all of their biomarkers are going to go haywire, and they're going to be at an increased risk of disease. So, I myself, I seem to do quite well being on a higher fat diet. So when I was in PA school, I was actually eating a lot of fat. I was putting coconut oil and butter in my morning coffee, and this was just to save me time, and it allowed me to skip a regular breakfast. And I ended up getting my blood lipids checked, and they were extremely good. So my triglycerides were 33, my HDL was 99, my LDL was 49, and my VLDL was 7. So, obviously I personally was doing well eating a higher amount of saturated fat, but it's really important to know that I was also walking every day. I was weightlifting 2 to 4 times a week. I was sleeping 7 to 9 hours. I wasn't drinking alcohol. I wasn't smoking, and I was eating a ridiculous amount of vegetables on top of that. So I wasn't just eating a high saturated fat diet. I was doing all of these things. So this brings me to my main 2 recommendations that I'm going to give for you. The first is that you need to actually get your blood lipids checked if you want to know your risk of cardiovascular disease. So again, people's diets, people respond differently to different diets, and so you need to get your own blood levels measured. And I would recommend going beyond just a traditional cholesterol panel. You can actually get a more comprehensive report. Now you can get something like a cardiometabolic report, and that's going to give you a much more accurate picture of how your body is responding to your diet and your lifestyle. The second is that all of these other things are extremely important. Don't get muddied down by wondering about how this specific macronutrient or this specific food like coconut oil, that's going to be the end all be all when it comes to how you do in the long term, what your risk of disease is. The main things that you need to do, there's 5 main things that I recommend you guys do. First one is don't smoke. Smoking's horrible for you. The second one is don't drink. If you're a woman, don't drink more than 1 drink a day. And if you're a man, don't drink more than 2 drinks a day. You can drink some alcohol and be just fine, but if you excessively drink, it's going to increase your risk of a multitude of different diseases. The third is make sure you're sleeping 7 to 9 hours each night. That is going to allow your body time to recover and repair, which is going to help you feel better and live longer. The fourth is that you need to be exercising regularly. And if you are able to do so, I recommend doing some type of a vigorous activity at least 1 day a week in order to really stress your cardiovascular system. And 5 is you need to maintain a healthy weight throughout your life, regardless of what you decide to make your specific macronutrient intake. Doesn't matter if you're vegan or keto or carnivore or just plant-based or paleo. The point is that you need to maintain a healthy weight for the entirety of your life. That is what's going to give you the best possible chance of living a long, healthy life. So I hope that this has been helpful. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments below. Make sure you guys are subscribing, make sure you're following, so click that button down below so you don't miss out on any more great content. So again, this is Floyd Meyer reminding you to live better so that you can do more.